welcome to another edition of Nile Cruise brought to you from Nile TV International. My name is Sharif Al-Touni and I'm happy to be joined today with my colleague Salma Al-Fi. Hello Salma.
Hi Sharif, hello, how are you? How's everything?
Good. How are you?
All right. I think
enjoying the hot breeze. Yeah,
exactly.
It's really hot
the heat,
today.
basically.
Exactly, yeah.
More than the breeze.
But it's a good time to be, more towards the water side. So
yeah,
at least we're
exactly.
next to the water.
We're next to the water, so it might be a little cooler, hopefully, as we go through. And I think we have quite a few different segments in our show today.
Yes.
We have, of course, our political segment, which will be seeing a political analyst and discussing all the events that have been happening during this past week.
Okay, and also we'll be having a number of editions as usual, covering from the musical segments, the cultural segments, and also we'll be having a segment about tourism.
About tourism as well, that we'll also be discussing.
Which is something that we're following up, and I think it's gradually enhancing day after day.
Hopefully, yes, let's cross our fingers, hopefully.
All right, now let's move on for the short break and returning back with more.
قدامنا يا مصر تحدي كبير، عايزين في بلدنا يزيد الخير. قدامنا يا مصر تحدي كبير، خلينا ايد واحدة، عايزين في بلدنا يزيد الخير بالعزم والهمة. قدامنا يا مصر تحدي كبير، خلينا ايد واحدة، عايزين في بلدنا يزيد الخير بالعزم والهمة. اتعب واعمل كل اللي عليك، تعبك هتشوفه خير بعينيك، كل ده في الاخر فايدة ليك، بص لبعيد. اثبت يا شباب يلا وجودك، بلدك محتاجة لمجهودك، دي مصانع فتحت علشانك، فرصك بتزيد. قدامنا يا مصر تحدي كبير، خلينا ايد واحدة، عايزين في بلدنا يزيد الخير بالعزم والهمة. نبدأ ونأسس بالتعليم، يطلع جيل واعي وفكره سليم، هيفيدنا ويطلع بينا كمان خطوة لقدام. دورك هيسهل لينا كتير، وثقافتك طبعا ليها تأثير، هتشرف بلدك في العالم وفي أي مكان.
Welcome back. And now we're going to start our first report for today's edition in Nile Cruise on Nile TV. We have actually, it's not a report, basically it's a documentary about the Suez Canal that's been directed by the cinema director Magzi Al-Hawari. Let's go and check it out. Stay with us. And well, basically Suez Canal is going on. It's a big event, I think, in the mega project that's been inaugurated.
We'll definitely be having a coverage for more about analysis about.
We have been actually for the past 2-3 weeks.
Exactly.
The past 2-3
we'll have
editions.
in-depth analysis on that, maybe after the upcoming story. So let's enjoy it and be returning back.
Yeah. See you.
قناة جديدة لقناة السويس الحالية.
سيادة الرئيس، نعاهد الله ونعاهد سيادتكم ونعاهد شعب مصر العظيم حافظ على قناة السويس مكانا للحياة ورمزا للعطاء. احنا بنفكر من دلوقتي ل 10 سنين.
الزمن لان احنا متاخرين قوي. عارف مشاكل مصر زي ما انا شايف حضرتك.
بكل الفخر ندعو سيادتكم للتوقيع على وثيقة أمر بدء حفر قناة السويس الجديدة.
يتفضل السيد رئيس الجمهورية بإعطاء إشارة بدء الحفر وتفجير الساتر الترابي. على باب مصر تضم الأكف ويعلو 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 الضجيج، رياح تثور جبال تدور بحار بحار تهيج. على باب مصر تضم الأكف ويعلو 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 الضجيج، رياح تثور جبال تدور بحار بحار تهيج. وكل تساءل في دهشة وكل تساءل في لهفة، أين ومن أين ومن وكيف إذا.
هنشيل بلدنا على كتافنا، مش هنسيبها ومش هنضيعها ومش هنخلي حد يقدر يضيعها. تحيا مصر، يا تحيا مصر، يا تحيا مصر.
Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise, and starting with our first segment and a political segment with some news. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi issued Monday a presidential decree which hands off a number of previously presidential powers to Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab in accordance with the Constitution. Mahlab's new duties allow him to dispose of state property and the expropriation of property free of charge for the public benefit and protection of monuments, among others. Egypt's foreign minister and his Libyan counterpart announced an initiative on Monday to bring stability to Libya, including a plan to disarm warring militias that have wreaked havoc on the country in recent weeks. And also from another side, a piece of news, the Palestinians said Tuesday that they reached agreement with Israel on a permanent halt to 7 weeks of bloodshed in and around Gaza, although Israel was silent on the claimed deal. For this, we're joined with Dr. Ahmed Mehna, political analyst, to be discussing with us those topics and more. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much.
Let me hang on to the last point that Chief mentioned about Gaza. Let's start off with the Gaza issue. And why do you think, in your opinion, it's taking so long to stop the bloodshed in Gaza?
I think the Israeli foreign minister, and particularly the issue of dealing with Gaza, has always been played under the table. And I think the absence of Egypt during the last 3 years after the revolution has really maximized the Israeli power to get away with a lot of crimes in Gaza. And the return of Egypt now after the newly elected president, Mr. Sisi, now Egypt is regaining its position in the Middle East and creating that political and diplomatic balance in the region. And I think getting away with a lot of human crimes in Gaza has now become intolerable. And I think also the involvement of Egypt and the number of initiatives that have been proposed have also been played frankly and transparently with the Palestinians as well with the Israelis. As also Egypt has managed to create some sort of harmony between Hamas and Fatah to unite the Palestinians in the face of the Israeli terrorism. The number of weeks that has been taken, I think, in the beginning was due to the fact that Egypt was a bit absent. It's trying to regain its position, but I think it's never going to happen again because Egypt is now going through a major reform, not just on an internal side, but also on a foreign relations and its rank and position in international relations.
So, Dr. Ahmed, if you can shed some light, if you have any information regarding the deal itself, because what the Palestinian has claimed victory after this deal immediately, and as I mentioned earlier, there was no, any sort of statements from the Israeli side about the deal and the agreement that they have reached. From the other side, Palestinians are really claiming the victory and happy about what they achieved in terms of this war, a 50-day war.
I think the aspect of victory really differs from Palestinians to the Israelis. Israelis have this morning claimed that they've also achieved that victory over the Palestinians, but we need to look at what each one has really in mind in terms of that conflict. I think Israel was really aiming at destroying a large number of tunnels that Hamas and the Palestinians use across to Israel, and the second one is trying to break the military power and the smuggling of weapons that's going through Hamas from a number of countries, probably Hezbollah as well as from other borders, Syria, etc. So from that angle, Israelis are really claiming that they've achieved 80% or more of what they intended to do.
Plus the assassination and
exactly, assassination of number of personalities they really were looking at, causing a lot of trouble. They also claiming that they won in terms of recapturing a number of prisoners that they've released them earlier. They also managed to get away with releasing the deal that they had with the Palestinians to release a number of prisoners from the Israeli prisons. They haven't been released. So I think that's
part of the agreement.
That's part of the third agreement. That was the third group that need to be released. They've never released it. From the Palestinian side, I think holding strong, that is considered a victory to the Palestinians. Also, in terms of what the suffering, lack of electricity, lack of infrastructure, really, in brief, they've been holding strong against the Israelis, causing a chaos and an instability in the Israeli streets. I think that's causing really a lot of hassle to the Israelis. And from the Palestinian point of view, they think they have achieved victory. But looking at the Palestinians, I don't think they have really achieved any victories because they lost about 1,500 people, killing, and over 12,000 injuries, on top of the major damage to the infrastructure of Hamas. And I think it's going to cost them a lot of money to replace, and also is going to make life hell for Palestinians to really get that back on.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, moving on to another also very important event that was going on during this week is what is happening in Libya. And we have the Egyptians living in Libya have been fleeing since the violence erupted, and thousands being stranded along the Tunisian border. And Egyptian officials have been trying to take extra measures to repatriate them. How is the situation in Libya at the moment affecting Egypt?
I think the situation in Libya is quite complex because we find a lot of conflict between the democratic people led by some military officers against a number of tribes, and in the middle of that we've got our Muslim Brotherhood groups or terrorist groups that have taken Libya as a base for them to move and try to threaten the western border of Egypt. So Libya is really a complex situation, and the safety and security of Egypt relies quite a lot on the stability of the Libyan environment because of smuggling of weapons, smuggling of a lot of drugs, and also a lot of terrorist groups are attacking Egypt from the western border. At the moment, there is some breeze, that there is some talks happening. The Egyptian Foreign Affairs is getting involved in trying to settle the situation among the tribes and also help the people that want to enforce democracy to get back on and try to create that sort of stability. I think the Libyan people are not able to yet understand the danger they are in. I think there's a number of groups, whether they are tribes, terrorist groups, or even the army officials, are not able to understand the danger that Egypt is in, and they're all fighting, thinking that they are building Libya. In fact, it's an internal conflict, and that's what NATO has caused them, and it's the same thing is happening in Syria, same thing is happening in Iraq. So the Libyans now need to start to think objectively that this is not going to come with any benefit to any of them. It's going to lead to the collapse of the entire Libya. And at the moment, I think there is major great movements from the Egyptian Foreign Affairs. Also, there is involvement yesterday and today from the Arab League, trying to put some efforts in there, whether financially, politically, or diplomatically. So we hope that this situation is going to be rectified quite soon.
In terms of Egypt's position, you know, with there is allegations around Egypt involved in airstrikes and stuff like that. How is the positioning now? How is the positioning today in terms of diplomatic relations with Libya?
I think Egypt has a right to use military forces against the terrorist groups in Libya, but I don't think Egypt is doing that and will never do that. Egypt will never get into a foreign territories to use military force. Egypt at the moment is playing the diplomatic role, which is soft power that Egypt has lost in the last 3 years after the revolution. The soft power of Egypt now, and we can see that quite clear in Gaza agreement. We see this coming out quite clearly in the Libya settlement and the enforcement of peace. So Egypt is not using any military forces on the Libyan soil. At the moment, they're using the diplomatic forces and trying of Egyptian position or rank in the Middle East in terms of international relations and creating that balance in a military power. I think it's helping the Libyans to feel comfortable that there is another power helping them against the NATO should anything should occur again.
And Dr. Ahmed, also, what are the most important decisions that were taken in the ministerial meeting for the Libya and neighboring countries concerning the Libyan crisis? What can you highlight or shed?
I think Egypt at the moment is playing the pull and push factor, because at the moment we've got a number of groups that all conflicting with each other, and it's impacting negatively on Egypt. So Egypt is not trying to lose any of them, and at the same time is not playing soft. So at the moment Egypt is taking two parallel roads to try to settle the situation. And in terms of the foreign relations, Egypt is continuing the strong relationship with the leaders in Libya as well as the tribes, because a lot of the Libyan tribes have also roots in Egypt. So trying to create some sort of discussions and agreements among all these tribes, at the same time showing that they are able to defend the Egyptian soil even if they have to attack military forces. And also a lot of the officials have also indicated they are willing to help the Egyptians that they want to leave Libya. So this is really going on the way, especially that we've got more than 1.5 million Egyptians in there. So Egypt cannot take a rush decision to have an entry into Libya, because we've got 1.5 million that are in danger.
So another topic, Egypt's irrigation and the water resources minister Hussein Mughazi said that the first day of 2 days talks around Ethiopia's hydroelectric high dam projects were pleasing. The day consisted of 2 6-hour meetings in which delegations debated contested issues. How do you see the steps taken so far to deal with the dam crisis from one side, and the other side, how do you see the word pleasing?
Okay. In terms, let's go back to the last 2 years in terms of dealing with the Ethiopian dam or the Renaissance dam and how it impacts on Egypt. In the past, we used to deal with it as it's a national security issue, and we have to attack the dam should they start to establish it. But I think the approach that Egypt is taking at the moment is playing the soft power with the military power. The soft power basically means that we are happy for you to develop. We are happy for you to have some electric resources. We are happy for you to have a renaissance or some development in Ethiopia, as long as it doesn't impact negatively on our natural resources and our quota of the water. At the moment, in the last few weeks, the agreements with among the three countries, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, have led now to the agreement that the high dam is going ahead, the Ethiopian dam is going ahead, unless it's objected to by the international consulting organization or council that's already taken the charge in providing clear and accurate and detailed report around how the dam is going to impact. And now they're saying it's going to impact or holding about 17 billion cubic meters of water. It's not going to have a major impact on Egypt, but we're going to have to wait and see, is the report accurate, or was it actually wrong to even give them an initial or a preliminary agreement that you can do it. So at the moment we cannot really hold a decision. We're going to have to be behind the government and behind the president. They already agreed, despite the fact there was some major objections in the past 2 years to even talk to them about the Ethiopian dam. We have to object all the time, but at the moment they're taking a different approach, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what the report comes out, and if it doesn't impact negatively in Egypt, we will help them and we will be involved in development.
As an observer to this, a situation and talks between both sides, time is passing, and as time passes, the development of the project is also resuming. So how long do you think this talk should be taking place? Because you're almost halfway there.
I think Ethiopia is not losing as well. They know that they also need time, because the soil below the dam, where the dam is going to be built, there is a granite type of soil, so it needs treatment, and that takes between 2 to 3 years. So they already know that they're not in a rush. They're trying to negotiate, but just to have an initial agreement that they can have the dam, but they can't establish it right away. So and also holding the water is going to start from next year because of the treatment of the soil.
Dr. Ahmed, also coming back to another decision that was taking place this week, was what do you think are the reasons behind the presidential decree to hand off some powers to the Egyptian Prime Minister, and what are the outcomes of such a decision, do you think?
If we go back to January 25th, and allow me to say the collapse of the administrative system in Egypt was due to the fact that the institutions and the entire government organizations were all revolving around the National Party and around the person of Mubarak. And this is from the administrative point of view. In case of any chaos or instability, it creates or it leads to the collapse of the entire administrative system. So 11 February, when the former President Mubarak announced that he's not going to continue, we found that the administrative system of Egypt collapsed, and not because of the revolution, but because the entire institutions were revolving in the sphere of Mubarak. And this is what we need to do now, is rebuilding the institutions of Egypt and create some sort of a decentralized system for management. And I think President Sisi, with the redesigning the provinces, borders, the new capital, etc., this is the way to go, is to enforce the decentralization of administration, and now giving some powers to the Prime Minister is going to help actually for a better performance of government. So we don't really need to rely on one person in form of President Sisi, but we'll also have some power to the President, and the Prime Minister will also have to give some powers to his ministers, and this is how it goes down. So slowly going into the decentralized system. So definitely it is a good decision to go.
So looking at Mahleb's performance so far, given the new presidency and everything, how do you evaluate it from a high-level perspective?
Mr. Mahleb is definitely very active. The administrative system, in terms of the ministries as well as the entire administrative system, they're all active going through. But the most important thing here that highlights that performance is the vision. I think Egypt for the first time has a vision. Egypt for the first time has a program or a mega plan that we're all going on steps. Last week we've seen the announcement of the third mega project, which is the North Coast. Now, in the last 30 years of Mubarak, we've never seen any national project that's going ahead, not even in 10 years. So if we have every month a national project that's been launched, even if we continue 1% of the time, there's already a vision. And I think this is what is making the difference between the government of Mr. Mahleb and any government before that, is the vision. So it's not particularly the person, it's the vision. As long as we have a vision for our government to lead, any minister will be good. And I think he's doing a very good job in terms of implementing that particular vision and the studies that have been put in place. And we're talking about 22 national projects that have been discussed in different ways. The first one was the Suez Canal corridor, and now we're going into the North Coast.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, Mehna, thank you so much. We'd like to thank you for joining us. It was a great pleasure for giving us this overview of the events that have been happening during this week. And now we're going to move on to a report where we have the Prime Minister, Engineer Bahim Mahlab, along with the Minister of Youth and Sports, Engineer Khalid Abdelaziz, have inaugurated the Youth and Sports Development Center in Shubra al-Khema district. The aim of the center was to provide sports facilities to the youth. And we have the Nile TV's Linda Abdelatif has more. So let's go see the report and go on a short break. See you.
Abdelaziz have inaugurated the Youth and Sports Development Center in Shubra al-Khema district. The center was established under the framework of developing youth facilities in Egypt on a land space of 26,000 meters and a cost of 150 million Egyptian pounds.
It's really a nice place. It's a value added to Shubra al-Khema. It's a symbol of social justice. This is really a nice place, and I am really happy. You can see how our youth are happy, and children, their mothers, their fathers, and I think it's a new hope. And every day in Egypt you are building a new hope, every day.
This center was established by the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, and Minister of Youth and Sports has said that the center will present different services for youth, stating that they are done with all the facilities in the center. We're saying that our role as a Youth and Sports Ministry is to improve the infrastructure, establish playgrounds, halls and swimming pools for the youth to practice sports and for the families to find places to visit. Our target as a government is to reach a wide range of youth and tell them that the government is supporting them at a time when Egypt was passing by a hard phase, and despite that the center was established, and we thank the armed forces for standing beside us. Having such centers like the Youth and Sports Development Center will ease the accessibility of sports activities in the country, and this center in specific will be serving citizens of Shubra al-Khema and all the surrounding areas. Linda Abdelatif, Nile TV International.
Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise, and moving on now to the musical segment, and we're joined with Mekwan, and she was chosen as the best singer in the Egyptian universities in the year 2002, and she sings in the opera and has some video clips. We'll be enjoying the first song with her, Wana Meli.
مالي وانا مالي وانا مالي بالاحزان انا مالي مالي وانا مالي وانا مالي بالاحزان انا مالي عايشه في احلى ليالي ويا حبيبي الغالي طب مالي وانا مالي وانا مالي بالاحزان انا مالي مالي وانا مالي وانا مالي بالاحزان انا مالي عايشه في احلى ليالي ويا حبيبي الغالي وبحبك أوي يا عيوني بحبك مهما لموني بحبك أوي يا عيوني بحبك مهما لموني ما يلوموا طب وانا مالي طب وانا مالي الحب ومدفينا الورد ومغطينا الشمس وطلع علينا الحب ومدفينا الورد ومغطينا الشمس وطلع علينا من فرح الدنيا بينا من شهدها بتسقينا وبكرة مستنينا من فرح الدنيا بينا من شهدها بتسقينا وبكرة مستنينا ناسية هنا ناسية أيام كانت قاسية ناسياها معاك يا عيوني فاكرني هخاف يلوموني ناسياها معاك يا عيوني فاكرني هخاف يلوموني ما يلوموا طب وانا مالي طب وانا مالي انا مالي انا مالي ومالي وغنوا وحبوا وحبوا قولوا قولوا معايا يا ناس وغنوا وحبوا وحبوا قولوا قولوا معايا يا ناس خليك يا جرح بعيد ده هوانا لسه جديد لسه في أول عيد خليك يا جرح بعيد ده هوانا لسه جديد لسه في أول عيد وغنوا وحبوا وحبوا قولوا قولوا معايا يا ناس وغنوا وحبوا وحبوا قولوا قولوا معايا يا ناس خليك يا جرح بعيد ده هوانا لسه جديد لسه في أول عيد خليك يا جرح بعيد ده هوانا لسه جديد لسه في أول عيد هو سافري يا أحزان سافري يا أحزان ملكيش ما بينا مكان ساكن قلوبنا أمان ناسية هنا ناسية أيام كانت قاسية ناسياها معاك يا عيوني فاكرني هخاف يلوموني ناسياها معاك يا عيوني فاكرني هخاف